Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Your Overwatch. I'm Eddie the Chump and today we'll be discussing what we think of as the best ability in Overwatch, and that's Lucio's speed amp. A lot of people might overlook this. Lucio doesn't get a lot of credit. People dismiss him as an easy and beginner's hero. But if you take a look at any pro game at the top level, you might start to see why they and we rate him so highly. Solo queue perspective. Perhaps one of the biggest obstacles to recognizing how great speed amp actually is the way most players engage with Overwatch as a game. The difference between pro level play and even top 500 solo queue is immense, and that's to do with the solo queue factor. The truth is, people in solo queue pretty much pick what they want in an effort to guarantee individual value. That's not a criticism. We've advised people to make picks to generate synergies and develop value plays ourselves. The reason for this is that you never know what you're going to get as far as teammates are concerned. Lucio's speed amp is so good, pros don't take a team fight without it, and that's the reason people underrate it, because in most people's context, teamwork is at a minimum. The difference between the disciplined pro match / scrim environment and public ranked solo queue is arguably a hindrance to learning the game properly. A lot of you might be thinking, speed amp is rubbish compared to ability X. Let's use Roadhog's hook as an example. The hook can insta-kill every 6 seconds. Pressing E as Lucio offers nowhere near the same value. Well, that's an error, and this is why. If you're looking at the abilities from a solo player's perspective, then yes, you will probably be able to have more impact with a hook instead of a speed amp, but that's because you're looking at just your impact. Lucio's speed amp makes everyone's value potentially much higher, and that's why the pros see it as absolutely essential. The way they play is so different to the rest of us that it's much more obvious at that level. Lucio is not a very active hero in a lot of ways. He is all about key actions to set up others. If everyone is not on the same page, then even good Lucio plays can be completely wasted. That's why people underrate him and his speed amp. Most people either aren't aware of how much it could potentially help them or how to take advantage of the massive value it can provide. With that said, what exactly is it about speed amp that makes us rate it so highly? 1 E-press over 9,000 uses. First, let's discuss speed amp's use in engagement and disengagement. When your team gets sped into a team fight, they have a massive advantage. They can swarm an enemy team in a very short space of time, leaving your opponents fragmented and disorientated. The added movement speed makes all of your team much harder to hit as well. That's actually a point we'll discuss further later. Being able to seize positioning is the value play here. You take the ground you want, and your opponent has to adjust and often fight within their own formation, making it much harder for them to focus on any one thing, as you're suddenly in amongst them. Even after the initial burst, having speed on passively throughout a fight will continue to make your team harder to pin down. In terms of its ability to disengage, as Lucio is the only hero with access to a speed ability in any form, it's your only chance to avoid ultimates or escape to regroup to fight again. No other hero can do that, and as we've discussed before, proper regrouping is one of the biggest steps a team can make to not getting absolutely rolled into a loss. It affects positioning and mitigates damage. Here I'd like to unpack the idea of how speed amp, even in its passive form, helps you win more fights. The basic rule is, if you have a movement speed advantage, then it's much harder for the enemy team to hit you. This applies both to regular damage and, crucially, enemy abilities are harder to hit on you. Roadhog's hook can offer incredible value, as we said before, but if you're much harder to hit because of speed amp, the percentage of successful hooks on your team will go down. There's also the fact that a lot of Overwatch is played at close to medium range. With your team moving quicker, it can be hard to bring that regular damage to bear on you. Heroes that don't have evasive tools suddenly become much more scary. A friendly Roadhog becomes much less vulnerable and way more dangerous if he's suddenly moving into a great value hook position without giving the enemy team time to react. McCree is normally slow with few options to evade incoming damage. With speed amp, that's suddenly no longer the case. This principle is especially noticeable on King of the Hill, because that game mode requires a close fight in most circumstances, and offers the easiest examples of chase down and evasion. You can maybe get away without a Lucio on some other modes, but as far as we're concerned, he's absolutely essential on King of the Hill. In this section, I'd like to break down a few key examples for why speed amp is so great. This first clip shows how Lucio can help make sure your team has the correct positioning for follow up a massive ultimate like Graviton. If FREEDO hadn't have speed boosted, his team might not have been able to wipe as effectively as they did. As it worked out, all of his team were exactly where they needed to be. In clip 2 we see Lucio speed a nano boosted Roadhog into a position where he completely catches the enemy Ana off guard and hooks her. The play has extra value because the enemy Zen is also ulting at the same time. Picking off such a key hero at this moment is a huge swing factor in the fight, and wouldn't have been possible without speed boost. In this third clip, I take us back in time to a previous meta by speed boosting our nanoed Rein. Without that, Rein would have been left swinging at nothing and the push would have failed and nano wasted. In clip 4, we see FREEDO understand the win condition of the next fight, and that's bring the Xayah back into play as soon as possible. He knows Xayah has Graviton in her pocket and brings her back out of respawn before the enemy can seize any advantage. Because of this, Xayah is able to grab the enemy healers, and FREEDO's team can go on to win. Lucio is a true support. All of these plays made the plays of those around him that much more impactful. Conclusion: Lucio is so core to how the game is played at the top level that ignoring his contribution seems like folly. But you'd be amazed how many people see him as redundant. I'll say it again, he's the only hero in the game with access to a speed ability, and until that changes, he'll remain just as vital. With nerfs to his healing, Blizzard have attempted to bring parity to the support class, but in a strange way, this should make his real value much more apparent. If he's no longer that great a healer, then what use is he? Well, it turns out his speed has always been his core value. Now there's just less incentive to ever swap off it. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a rating. If you'd like to hear us talk about anything specific, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. If you would like to see us tilt live for your enjoyment, please check out our Twitch channel, which is linked in the description. Also, please follow the Your Overwatch Twitter. It's where you can find updates about new videos and streams. I've been Eddie the Chump, and until next time,